Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter podcast. Today, we're going to have our next college football video. I'm a little behind on these still, so I'm trying to once again catch up on all these. So we'll probably have some more come Friday, and then hopefully some more next Tuesday as well. Which next Tuesday will also be the June reviews of Major League Baseball. So all that will be coming up very soon. So, we're gonna get into this. This is the Big 12. Is our next college segment. Um, I am burning hot right now. The AC in our house is currently not totally functioning, so it is like 85 degrees in here. Yeah, I'm sweltering. I don't like this. As I'm sticking to the back of the chair. So yeah, we're just gonna get into this one. Yeah, I don't want to really have to be doing this too long. I kind of just want to put myself under a fan and really cool off immediately. Um, so we start with the first team in the Big 12. We're gonna start with Arizona. They had a rough year last year. I'm not sure if there's really much to expect from the Wildcats. They went 4-8 a season ago. Um, I'm going to be doing this is as before, as I've said before. These are the over under win totals for the season for all teams. Now, for this one, I'm going to be going based off of what Vegas Insider says. I also got order it. Oh yeah, that's right. It's farther down. So I'm gonna order it by comments. But anything for Arizona, we're just gonna let's head into this one. Wildcats, their schedule consists of Hawaii, Weber State, and Kansas State, all at home. Iowa State and Oklahoma, or then a bye. On the road against Iowa State, home again to both Oklahoma State and BYU. On the road against Houston and Colorado with a bye sandwiched with the other bye sandwiched in between. Home to Kansas, at Cincinnati, home to Baylor, and at Arizona State. The Arizona over under for the year is shockingly at 7.5. This is a team that went 4-8 last year, so I'm trying to figure out what the hype is over Arizona. I really don't know of any, so I'm just going to go with under 7.5, just because I don't really know of anything good for Arizona. So I'm a little confused as to where they're getting the 7.5 number from. But I'll go with under for AZ. Like I said, I don't know of anything for Arizona that's really all that good. Now for these videos, I'm going to be going pretty quickly through these because this is 16 teams, obviously, as opposed to four. Four is a lot easier to go through. 16 is a lot more. Arizona State won the defending Big 12 champions from a year ago, first year they were in their first year in the Big 12. Back at again, they will start the year at home against Northern Arizona, on the road against Mississippi State, back home to Texas State, on the road against Baylor, home to TCU, their first bye, at Utah, home to Texas Tech and Houston, on the road against Iowa State before they get their second bye. And then we'll have home to West Virginia, at Colorado, and home to Arizona. The over under for Arizona State sits at a whopping 4.5. I'm thinking that's gotta be a typo. I think they probably mean Arizona State 7.5, and Arizona 4.5. That just seems to make more sense to me. Um, Hey, I really don't know. And that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it has to have been some sort of typo, because otherwise I am very confused as to how Arizona say is 4.5 and Arizona is 7.5. But I'll go with what it says. I'm going over for sure. Um, I don't think ASU is going to repeat what they did last year. This team, I don't think has. what it had from last season. Um, Again, I don't really know what they necessarily have left either, but Arizona State is definitely better than a 5-7 team. Is definitely better than a 4-8 team. Like I said, I'm thinking that's a typo and that it's meant to be switched, which is Arizona State 7.5 and Arizona 4.5. If that's the case, that would make way more sense and that would make it a lot tougher. But as I said, I'm just going to go with what it says, which is the other way around. So I'll go with it. I don't think it's necessarily accurate, but I'll go with it. These might be old too. I don't really know. Because some of this seems a bit off. But this said 2025, and it says as of June 23rd of this year. So I'm guessing these are up to date. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I don't even know if this is that accurate of a site, but it says as of yesterday. So who knows? Next up, we have the Baylor Bears. On AS in Arizona State last year, of course, like I said, defending champs. They were 11-3, but the Baylor Bears, they were 8-5 a season ago. They will start the year with a very tough non-conference game, home to the Auburn Tigers. And then on the road against SMU, which will be yet another very difficult non-conference game. So quite the start to the year. Home to Stanford, home to Arizona State, at Oklahoma State, home to Kansas State before their first bye, at TCU and Cincinnati, then home to UCF and Utah with a bye sandwiched in the middle, at Arizona, and then finish the year home to Houston. Over under is at 5.5. I think this is at least a bowl eligible team, so I think uh, giving them bowl eligibility is more than fair. This isn't a great team, I don't think, by any stretch. So I think 5.5 is honestly a pretty good number for them. But I would not expect this team to go under uh, the bowl eligibility mark. But I think 5.5 is a fair number for Baylor. But I'll definitely give them at least 6-6. I think they can certainly get there. Not much more than that, obviously, but certainly good enough to at least do that. The BYU Cougars. They had quite the year last year. They ended up going 11-2. They missed the Big 12 title game between, which ended up being last year Arizona State and Iowa State. Just fell a little short of that. Some unfortunate losses for them kept them out of the Big 12 title game in their inaugural season. But they still have a pretty good team, and they still should be solid this year, which will start with Portland State and Stanford at home before they get their first bye at ECU in Colorado, then back home to West Virginia before taking themselves back on the road to play Arizona, home to Utah in a huge rivalry game there, at Iowa State, then their other bye game, then staying on the road against Texas Tech, home to TCU, at Cincinnati, and home to UCF to finish the year. The over under for BYU is a whopping 10. I'm going under for that. I don't know if they can get to 10-2. I think that's and certainly not 11-1. So I'm going under for this one. I think that just getting to that mark is um rather difficult. So yeah, I'm definitely going under for this one. I mean, this is a solid team, don't get me wrong. They certainly have some players, but this is not going to be this is not the creme de la creme. This is a solid team, but getting to 10-2, especially 11-1, is going to be very challenging for them. So I'm gonna go under for them for sure. Next, we have the Cincinnati Bearcats. Cincinnati, not the best of seasons last year. They fell short of a bowl game, going 5-7. But they will have a very fun first game, which will be at Arrowhead Stadium, believe it or not, against the Nebraska Cornhuskers on a Thursday night. So that should be actually a pretty intriguing game for opening week, especially since we don't have Minnesota playing someone on Thursday night to open the college football season. I always look forward to that game now, and this year is Buffalo. I'm like, are you kidding me? You gave them Buffalo. You couldn't have figured out any other opponent to put in week one. I mean, we've had I think 3 straight years now, other than 1 year where Purdue was the Thursday night opener, taking on Penn State, which was an entertaining, which was a very entertaining game. Minnesota has been in that game 3 straight times. Every single time when they played at home, all 3 times they're at home, and all 3 games are pretty entertaining. They won. They had Ohio State the 1 year. That was pretty fun. I mean, Ohio State ended up slightly pulling away at the end, but it was still pretty tight most of the way through. The Nebraska game was highly entertaining. The North Carolina game last year was awesome. That was a lot of fun. And now this year it's like Buffalo, and I'm like, bro, no one wants to watch that. Like, come on. You could come up with something, but oh well. But anyway, Cincinnati, opening week, or first game of the year, Arrowhead Stadium against Nebraska. Interesting non-conference game. Bowling Green and Northwestern State, they'll have at home by first bye of the year. At Kansas, home to Iowa State and UCF. On the road against Oklahoma State. Then they will be home to Baylor, or yeah, home to Baylor, at Utah, get their next bye, and then we'll have Arizona BYU at home and TCU on the road to finish the year. Cincinnati is going to be a tough one here because their over under sits at 5. Um, I'm not sure they'll go 5-7 this year, but 4-8 I think honestly is a little tough. Um, Based off of the schedule they have, I think it might be a little challenging for them to win some of these games. The Big 12 is one of the more open conferences. I don't think there's really like a clear, dominant team, but I do think Cincinnati is going to have a hard time with a lot of this schedule. So I actually will say push. Um, I will say just push that they'll just go straight 5. Um, I think 5-7 is honestly a decent number for them. That's actually a really good number. So I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know much about really the Big 12 in general. So forgive me for kind of being a little clueless on a lot of this because, like I said, I just don't know much about the Big 12 and not really all that aware of them. Um, yeah, so Cincinnati, I'm just gonna go with push here. Colorado, obviously, there's a lot of hype around around prime time, Deion Sanders, all that good stuff. So the Sanders, his kids are gone. So no longer will you have Shadeur or Travis or Shiloh, or I think Shiloh's gone too. I'm pretty sure all of his kids have graduated now. So now it's just pretty much whatever he can find. But starting off the year, I think this is a Friday game. They'll be home to a fun team in Georgia Tech. So interesting opening game for them. Also for their hotshot freshman QB, who I'm guessing is probably going to be starting, Julian Lewis. Then they'll be home again to Delaware, on the road against Houston, home to Wyoming and BYU, on the road against TCU, home to Iowa State, then they get their first bye. At Utah, home to Arizona, at West Virginia, next bye, and then Arizona State at home and Kansas State on the road to finish the year. Colorado sits at over under 4.5. I'm gonna go over. I think they can get to 5-7. Heck, who knows? They might even make a bowl game. Um, I don't think the fit for Deion Sanders in Colorado is really going to work, but he's trying. Uh, I don't really trust this team yet. We'll see what happens, but maybe they make a bowl game, but I'll give them at the very least 5-7. I don't think they'll win the Georgia Tech game, and a lot of those conference games are probably going to be tough. So, tough break for Colorado. Next is Houston. Now this is a rough team. So we start off with home game against Stephen F. Austin, on road against Rice, home to Colorado, first bye of the year. At Oregon State, home to Texas Tech, then at Oklahoma State, back home to Arizona, on road against Arizona State, home to West Virginia, at UCF, next bye of the year, and then home to TCU and at Baylor to finish the season. Their over under is 3.5. Um, don't know. 3.5 is very low, but this Houston team has also been very bad. I mean, last year I'm pretty sure they went either 3-9 or like 2-10. It was the Houston program is a far cry from what it really was when it was in the American Conference. Since they've joined the Big 12, it just really hasn't worked. Houston was okay. Well, Houston was 4-8 last year. This just does they don't really have a ton of good players. Um, I mean, looking at the schedule, who it is they get to play this year, can they get 4 wins? I mean, I'm not really sure on that. I think a lot of the conference games will be a little tough. I'll say I'll say under because I think they'll probably win one of them, but I don't think they'll beat Oregon State. So I'll say just under. I'll go not 3-9 for them. This is just not a good team right now. The Houston program has really fallen as of late. So yeah, I'll go with Houston to go just under that mark. And then we go to Iowa State. Fell just a hair short of the Big 12 title just a year ago. Now they'll look to maybe get some revenge this year and grab back the crown. Iowa State, they will be playing in week 0. Our next 3 teams actually all will be playing in week 0. Iowa State will be playing their rivals of Kansas State in Ireland. They are going to be what the Georgia Tech Florida State game was last year. The college football essentially kickoff game should be highly entertaining. Very interested in seeing that game, obviously. And then they'll have home games in South Dakota and their real arch rivals of Iowa. They'll be on the road against Arkansas State. For Iowa State, they'll have 3 byes this year because you automatically get 2, and with week 0, you get a third added in. So they'll be on bye after the Arkansas State road game, which why they playing at Arkansas State. Home to Arizona, on road against Cincinnati and Colorado. Then they get their second bye. Home to BYU and Arizona State. Then on the road against TCU until they get their last bye. Then they'll be home to Kansas and on the road against Oklahoma State to finish the year. Iowa State sits at just straight up 8. Um, I like them to go over. I've always I like seeing I like the Iowa teams. They always seem to impress you and go above expectations. I mean, last year is a perfect example of that. No one expected Iowa State to, have the success that they did, and instead they went 11-3. I mean, people are kind of like, yeah, they might get a bowl game. And instead, they go 11-3 and nearly win the Big 12 title. So, I mean, that's a good team. They also still have some good players from last year. Of course, the quarterback Rocco Becht is still around. They have lost some receivers from a season ago, but the QB is still there. They still, I think, have some running backs from last year who did pretty well for them. So definitely something to look at. Yeah, the running back from last year who was really good actually is still there. So yeah, I'm going over. Um, this is a good Iowa State team. They've definitely got a pretty solid amount of talent. There's definitely players still around. I think they could make it to 9-3. Um, like I said, good team. Uh, they they always seem to shock you and surprise you when you least expect. So I like Iowa State this year. I have them going over that 8 mark. The Kansas Jayhawks. No, I said the next 3 teams here, they're all going to be playing week 0. So Kansas is another one of those teams playing week 0. Um, They actually got a huge renovation of their stadium. So their Fresno State home game here, which should be an interesting one, by the way. Fresno State, a pretty good group of five team. That will be their first game in their completely just overhauled stadium. I guess they did like crazy renovations to it. So they'll be playing their first game there uh, against Fresno State. I believe they still have Jalen Daniels, not Jaden Daniels. This is a different Daniels. This is Jalen Daniels. He's had a lot of injury issues, so we'll see if he's actually healthy this year. Well, like I said, start off with Fresno State. Then they'll be home to Wagner on the road against Missouri before they get their first bye. Uh, Home to West Virginia and Cincinnati on the road then against UCF and Texas Tech before they get their second bye. Same thing as Iowa State, they get three byes. Home to Kansas State and Oklahoma State before going on the road against Arizona, then getting their last bye until taking on Iowa State on the road, and Utah to finish the year at home. Kansas's over under is wow, high. Their over under is sitting at 8. I'm definitely going under for this one. I just don't think Kansas is a 8-4, 9-3 team. I think they're more than likely going to be a borderline bowl game team. Jalen Daniels is a huge part of this team, and he has had several injury issues throughout his college career. He's had a lot of problems staying on the field. Now, while he's on the field, the results have been mostly pretty good. Although with the constant injuries, it seems like his play has also started to fall off a little bit. So, I'd be a little concerned if I was a Kansas fan with the seemingly slowly degrading play in your what has been your star QB. So we'll see if something changes and things get better. But as of right now, it just really has not been. So we'll see what happens, but definitely under for Kansas. I just don't think reaching that milestone is really all that achievable. And then we have another fun team here. This is another good one. Kansas State. Now, the other Kansas team is actually pretty good. Much like Iowa State, of course, they are playing Iowa State in that same game. So they start off with Iowa State in Ireland in the college football, basically like classic and stuff. Then they'll have North Dakota and Army at home. Army can be a tricky game. Army is always tricky to deal with. Then they'll be on the road against Arizona before getting their first bye. Once again, they get three. Home to UCF, on the road against Baylor, and home to TCU before getting their second bye. At Kansas, home to Texas Tech before their last bye, and then on the road against Oklahoma State and Utah before finishing the year at home versus Colorado. Kansas State also lost a couple good players from last season. Their over under sits at 9.5. I think that's going to be a little tough for them to get to. I think they could probably go 9-3, but I don't know. 10-2 is all that likely, so I'm going to go under for Kansas State. This is a good team, but just getting to that mark, I think, is going to be really hard for them. I mean, like I said, they have good players. They have a solid QB. They have some solid players all across the team, but I think it's going to be a little bit challenging for them to make that mark um, of 10-2 to be over the 9.5 mark. So I'm thinking they're going to go slightly under it. Good team, but just not good enough. Next is Oklahoma State. Now, they had a really rough year last year. They, I think, actually did not win a single conference game last year. They lost their big time running back from a year ago, Ollie Gordon, who had that great second year in college and then wasn't really as special his next season. Oklahoma State 0-9 in the conference a season ago. Really rough for them. They will start the year at home against UT Martin before going on the road in a very tough non conference game against Oregon. until they get their first bye. Then we'll have Tulsa and Baylor at home, on road against Arizona, Houston and Cincinnati at home, Texas Tech and Kansas on the road before getting their second bye, Kansas State at home, UCF on the road, and Iowa State to finish the year at home. The over under for Oklahoma State. Let me see here. Oh my, sits at 8.5. Yeah, I'm going under for this one. I don't really see much from Oklahoma State right now. Like I said, last year was by far Mike Gundy's worst season, and I think he'll get a little bit better. But to go 9-3 after going 3-9, you're literally flipping the numbers. No, I don't see that. I think they can get it to a bowl game for sure. I think 6-6 is certainly within the realm of possibility, or 7-5 or something like that. But going 9-3 after going 3-9 a year ago, plus you got Oregon in your non-conference. Yeah, give me a break. You're not getting here. Sorry, Oklahoma State, but it's not going to be a 1 year turnaround like that. And next we have TCU. TCU last year was a solid team. They went 9-4. They had an overall that's kind of decent year. And they'll start off with an interesting opponent on the road against North Carolina on a Monday night game. They'll be playing on Labor Day, so that should be interesting. Before they get their first bye, then they'll take on Abilene Christian and SMU, our rivals there, SMU. Uh, at Arizona State, home to Colorado, at Kansas State, home to Baylor, at West Virginia. Then their next bye, home to Iowa State, at BYU and Houston, and then home to Cincinnati. Over under for TCU, for them sits at 7.5. That's a pretty fair number for them. I'll go just slightly under. This is another team where I really just don't know much about them. I mean, seven. I'll go with a 7-5. This is not a team I really know much about. I don't really know much about the running backs. I don't really know much about the players. I just know that TCU is just kind of a middle of the road average team. So I'll go with a middle of the road average record. I think that's about as good as I'm gonna get. Um, next we have that's a quick one. Sorry, guys. Next is Texas Tech. This is a interesting one after really what we saw last season from them. They had a overall fine year. They went 8-5. They will start the year with three straight home games against Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State. Then we'll head on the road against Utah and Houston with their bye sandwiched in between. Home to Kansas, at Arizona State, home to Oklahoma State, on the road against Kansas State, as way too many states. Um, then at home against BYU and UCF. Is everything in this conference just a state or initials? I just noticed that. Then they get their last bye of the year, and then we'll finish the year on the road against West Virginia. The over under for Texas Tech also is at 7.5. Fair number for them. This is a team that I know is pretty normally likes to be pretty good offensively, so you might see a lot of shootouts with them. Just because of the non-conference, I'm also going to go slightly under for them. I'm going to just say 7-5. Again, this is another one of those where like I don't really know much about them, so I'm just kind of taking a random guess. Um, I'm gonna go under for them. I don't really know. It's tough to say. Next we have UCF. This is a team that really did not do too sharp last year. They were 4-8. For the Golden Knights, they will take on Jacksonville State to begin the year at home, along with North Carolina A&T and just simply North Carolina, with the bye between those Carolinas sandwiched in between. Their first one, that is. On the road against Kansas State, then home to the other Kansas team at Cincinnati, home to West Virginia. Then their next bye until they go on the road against Baylor, home to Houston, at Texas Tech, close out the year at the bounce house against Oklahoma State and BYU. The over under for UCF sits at 9. I'm going under for this one as well. UCF is really just not that special. Going 9, getting 10 and 2, getting 9 and 3 or 10 and 2, I just don't think is really possible for them. They're a good team, but not good enough to get that kind of a number. So I'm going to go under for UCF. Again, like I said, just not really possible for them right now. Next, we have the Utah Utes. This is another team that really was not that special last season. They went 5-7. They start the year on the road against UCLA, an old-fashioned Pac-12 matchup. Before facing Cal Poly at home, on the road against Wyoming, another interesting road game there. Home to Texas Tech, at West Virginia, then they get their first bye. Home to Arizona, at BYU, home to Colorado and Cincinnati, then they get their second bye. At Baylor, home to Kansas State, and then on the road against Kansas to finish the year. The over under for the Utah Utes sits at wow, okay. It sits at 10. I don't know where that number came from, but I'm certainly going under that. Yeah, I don't. I don't. I don't really know. This could be off. I really have no idea. Um, but yeah, this is not a 10. This is not a 10 and 2, 11 and 1 win team. There's no way. I mean, they're not that good. Um, they have some good players, but to do that is kind of insane. I just no. Then we have Robert Morris, or I'm sorry. Then we have our last team as West Virginia. West Virginia last year was overall is kind of meh. They went 6-6, lost their bowl game. Could be more of the same this year. Home to Robert Morris to begin the year. On road against Ohio, then home to Pitt at Kansas, home to Utah at BYU, then their first bye at UCF, home to TCU at Houston, home to Colorado at Arizona State, then their last bye and home to Texas Tech to finish the year. The over under for the Mountaineers of West Virginia sits at 6.5. I think that's a fair number. I'll give them over for this one. I do think they can get 7-5. Um, I don't know if their quarterback, was it Garrett Green or whatever, is still there, or whatever his name was. I really don't know. There's something Green. Oh, actually, he looks like he's gone. Okay. Um, but that was a big player for him. But I'll give him over. They're still a solid overall team. They still can play. They still have some good players remaining on there. They still got looks like they have a duo. They have a duo running backs who play pretty darn well. Also, a receiver who likes to get some carries. So yeah, I'll give West Virginia the over. They typically have a good season. I think 7-5 can be had for the Mountaineers. So that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I go a little faster through the college videos because there's just so many darn teams to go through. I am also extremely hot right now. I am so ready to get this AC working again. That's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, adios, everyone.